Around a lot. I'm not sure. Okay. Great. Okay, so let me just let me start with something really just simple, which is where do we come from? Our legacy is we were founded in 1966 by Bill and Dave, and their offices, their original offices, are actually still in our headquarters building, which is really cool. So if you're ever in Palo Alto, we'll make sure that you guys can go visit them. But we have a long legacy of innovation, and throughout the years, HP Labs has been the place where we are able to do things ahead of the curve, ahead of where the businesses are, and so that then when the time comes, when they're ready for commercialization, then we're able to transfer those technologies over to our businesses and get them in the hands of our customers. And so when I was talking about sort of where we fit in with how R&D is done at HP, if you look over here on the left, you'll see that this notion of sort of evolutionary innovation and which really turns into sort of R&D and advanced development, that's where we see that's where our business units work. Right, so it's all about sort of the next generation of products. It's usually innovating in existing markets and that kind of thing. And so we see that that's like the 1 to 2, maybe 3 years time horizon, and that's the majority of R&D at HP, as I mentioned. So each of our business units has a significant innovation investment. And then, all the way to the right of that is where labs kind of comes in, where we overlap a little bit with the businesses as we sort of do a handshake and we try to, get things over to them, and so we collaborate. But the further out in time that we go, the more that's really in HP Labs' charter, if you will. So we are really looking at research and technology development that's, can be anywhere from 2 to 5 years to 5 to 10 years out, or even further away. And I think that that's the part where it really makes a lot of sense for us to be a corporate function. So our director is also the CTO for HP. His name is Martin Fink, and Martin reports directly to Meg. So that's the importance, that Meg really puts on innovation. And so she's got us, reporting directly to her, and she's, constantly seeing sort of what's going on. And I think it's really exciting for us too to be in that position, to have that opportunity, to really be well connected with the strategy of the company. So let's see. I have just a really brief summary here of kind of the lab's research agenda, because if you may have read, in the last 6 months, as I mentioned, we have new leadership at HP Labs, and as HP's, I guess these are a little bit small. This is like a little cloud over here, and there's like a little guy with a phone. I guess the gray on white isn't really coming across so well on the slides, but with HP's focus on our strategic pillars and what our strategy is, we've also sort of really tightened up and better articulated what HP Labs' research agenda is all about. And so under Martin Fink's leadership, what we're really talking about is our vision and how we want to, really sort of shape the future of IT it's really all about, how do we bring about software-defined IT. So we've talked about software-defined networking, which I understood you guys heard yesterday. We've talked a lot about the different component level kind of innovations that we have in the way, kind of the architecture of a data center comes together. We've talked about innovations in our servers and our storage. But as we look into the future, we say, all of these things we're going to come together, and it's going to the architecture is going to fundamentally need to change so that we can handle this enormous amount of data, right, that's coming, that we're going to need to handle, that all of our customers are going to need to handle. And so today's architectures are just not going to cut it. So we really need an architecture that's going to be able to handle sort of this data-centric, really huge scale kind of world. And so that's where we see the future going. And so we think that that's sort of a foundational piece of that is what we call universal memory, which you might also have heard about from us as Memristor, right, is our non-volatile memory. And I think that's going to be something that's not only going to be an advantage for storage, but also for processing. And then you also saw in the video my colleague Mike Tan, who is one of the people leading the research in photonics. And so he was showing you that little piece of plastic, which is the optical backplane. And so that's just the start of where we really see, the interconnection of this universal memory into these photonically enabled fabrics. And then on top of all of that, we need to have software-defined systems and software-defined networks so that we're best taking advantage of this, so that we're able to address sort of the needs of this kind of hyperscale world. And then finally, if we're able to deal with all this information, it's not just we're not just going to want to process it. We actually want to get meaning out of it, and we want to get understanding out of it. And so that's where the whole visualization piece comes in. And so we talk about, how do we gain insights from the data? How do we really understand, what it is that we need to know? And how does then that data help us make better decisions in real time? So you think about sort of, making business decisions kind of, in real time or at Google speeds, right? The way it's so easy to find information today on Google. What if, all the information in your company was able to, you could find it just as easily, right? So that's something that we're driving towards. And I think that what you see here is with these little arrows where we talk about mobility and we talk about consumption. Obviously, we know HP is not only, servers and storage and hardware and cloud and all these important things. We're also, we're a personal device company and we're a printing company. And how does that fit into this vision? And really what it comes down to is that when we're talking about visualizing this data, we're talking about visualizing it in all different ways. We're talking about consuming it, right? So how do we get that information? We want to have access to it anywhere, right? We want to have access to it on a phone or maybe a 3D phone like we talked about in the video, or you want to have it on a big screen, on a small screen. You want to visualize that data maybe in 3 dimensions. I mean, all of that is about consumption, and consumption is not just on a screen, it's paper, right? It's physical. So how do we bridge that gap between the physical and digital worlds? And so that's a lot of the research that we're doing as well. So really just a quick overview for you guys, and I hope it gives you a little bit of a context as to where we're looking in the future, because we're really looking at this explosion of data, and the changes that these sort of foundational technologies are going to enable for us, and that's where we're going with our research, and then enabling HP to really change the game, we think, in the future. Let me just take a pause and see if anybody has any questions before I go on. Questions? Am I moving too much? Okay, I should have a little mark or something on the floor. Good, okay. So let's see. The other reason why I'm really just so pleased to be part of the agenda here today is because, as I mentioned when I started to speak today, my colleagues here in Aguadilla, they really are the next step in the chain, if you will, in the value chain from when we start with research and then we want to bring it to commercialization. We need partners like them, and we work really closely with them so that we can get our innovations into the hands of our customers. We make them real. And so if you talk about HP Labs, so if you see we summarize our research agenda here, we have a lot of different ways we might look at commercializing our technology. Obviously, technology transfer to our businesses is sort of the top goal, right? So we work really closely with them, and as I said, they're a great example of sort of what happens when research starts to come to fruition and how do we make it real, and that's how we partner with them, so that we have a great story to tell there. But we have a lot of other things that we do as well. Sometimes there are innovations in our supply chain that make a difference for HP. We do explore licensing of our technologies in many cases, and so that is something that where sometimes something comes out of the research that isn't necessarily something that we were looking at, but it becomes something that we can license and bring value to HP. We also find ways to make our technology useful to the services that we provide through enterprise services. And then finally, we can also work with other internal groups like HPIT, or even look at options like incubations of sort of new businesses, new markets, and things where we have to lead the way a little bit more and incubate something new. So there's a lot of paths to commercialization for us. That's really the key thing. When we do the research, we don't just do it for an academic purpose. We really want to be sure that we're doing research for a reason, and that reason is to deliver the most important technologies to our customers, to society, and obviously to HP to make a difference. Okay. Questions before I go on? Okay.
I missed the portion of your presentation. But real quick on the incubation part, that's internal incubation of projects that you guys build from the ground up.
Yep.
Or do you guys also seek out opportunities with bright, talented, young people who have great ideas that probably could be a good mix or good value? Your technologies to incubate them and get them off the ground.
Well, I mean, I do think that I wouldn't necessarily say that we have, at least in the lab side, that we have a program where we're actively like funding startups or anything like that. However, collaboration with our wider innovation ecosystem is important because we don't have the monopoly on all the smart people in the world. So that's definitely something that we look for. We have a really strong intern program. We bring in a lot of postdocs and interns every year. That's a really important part of how we do our work. And we also collaborate with universities every year. So we collaborate. Well, actually, what I have up here as well, we have co-innovation with our customers. So when our customers have a really, sort of pressing problem that also presents a real research challenge, that's one of those opportunities that we have sometimes to get together and find solutions together, and then that, kind of becomes then another piece of feedback for us.
And the reason why I ask is I'm seeing a lot of the larger tech companies now having what they call venture arm. Mm-hmm. So, Google Ventures, and all these other venture arms of these large tech companies are out there deliberately putting out money to bright guys. Like you said, you don't have the monopoly on getting all the bright talent all the time. So with this, at least gives them incentive. Bring your idea here. We'll help you grow your idea. We're your partner in crime, pretty much. That's the reason why I was asking, see if there was any external ways of doing that. Okay.
Thanks. So I think this is my last slide because I didn't really want to bore you guys too much. And I will say one thing though. I mean, when we talk about sort of how we do our innovation, if you think about the long time horizons, now we've been talking about cloud all these days. Really, back in the day, in labs, in 2003 was when I'm gonna go ahead. Are you guys all done there? Or I don't know if they can hear me okay. Okay, I'll just give them a minute. I'm good? You guys can hear me? Okay.
Keep going.
Okay.
You're good.
One of the things that we did in 2003, we worked with DreamWorks. A lot of, you might have heard the story, but we provided them with a utility rendering service for Shrek 2. And at the time, that's what we were calling cloud. We were calling it utility computing, if you guys remember right, a few years ago. And that's one of the things that came out of HP Labs, which was, working with DreamWorks. So it's an example of working with our customers and solving a problem that they had, which was getting, more computing capacity that they needed during peak times when they were developing Shrek 2. So if you look all the way back, right, that's 10 years ago that Labs was working on this. And now, HP is in a position, where we're actually executing on this. And so I think that's an also really interesting example of, sometimes the innovation horizon takes a long time, and as these things kind of percolate into the business, that's where we see the impact over time of these innovations. So I think that's it for me. I'm sorry, let me just move this chair.
Martina, you talked about the global talent development. I know that's something core to our HP business. Can you expand on that one a little bit more?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The global talent that you talked about before, how HP's taken a big investment, especially in the labs area. Can you talk about a little bit more about what we're doing, the style and the depth of that program?
Sure. Well, we not only do we have sites in various parts around the world in HP Labs, we have a really, sort of international staff at Labs as well. One of the things that I think is really important is the way Labs interacts with the rest of the R&D community in HP. So the R&D community in HP is, 60,000 strong, I think at least, all over the world. And, we're always interacting with them in one way or another, either very personally through our technology transfer, also through things like our internal technology conference, like TechCon and things like that, where we're, I think, really working to make an innovation ecosystem within HP as well, and kind of, drive the importance of that. And then outside of that, I mean, we have, a lot of initiatives, I think, as well to kind of impact curriculum in terms of, what we think are really important fields so that we can recruit, future generations of some of these really bright and capable people that are going to be able to work on the technologies of the future. So we do a lot of work as well around the world in these initiatives where we either bring, curriculum developments, we work in engineering and science agencies and things like that.
Is there any one particular, you said worldwide, just a follow-on question. Is it truly worldwide, or are there more sort of areas that get maybe more attention than others? Is it a truly worldwide program, or is it?
I think it really varies by the area.
Okay.
Really, I think it just comes down to sort of what the needs for each research area would be. Yep. So we kind of leave that discretion up to the teams that are working on it to find the right partners for them.
Okay.
Please.
I do have a couple of questions.
Please.
Yep. Un momento.
Oh, yeah, the microphone.
I had the opportunity. My name is Omar Sanchez. I'm from Juncos, Puerto Rico.
Hi.
And I thank you for being here. I had the opportunity to teach at the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez. I do some what is MECU here, which is calculus for administration and business. And I have one question: how do you pick your talent? And you say you have a delegation of HP Labs here in Aguadilla.
So, well, we have a partnership with the R&D team here in Aguadilla.
Okay,
So,
so
I'm in Puerto Rico, but I'm sort of an outlier. I still report to HP Labs in California. So I'm sort of hosted here.
So you are working with them to develop new stuff for your clients in the nearbys, right?
Sure, exactly. For here and globally as well. And they're going to talk more about specifically about some of the things
So
that are already
your
progressing.
talents are employees all the time from HP, or you pick talent from universities?
We do work with universities for sure. I mean, as I mentioned, we have a very strong intern program we've actually had in the past, and I'm sure they have here as well. Large numbers of students that we recruit for summer internships, postdocs, work like that, and we also have collaborations with universities as well. So like I said, it really becomes then driven by what the sort of the needs of the individual research projects are. But that's something that's not just unique to labs. I mean, we have I think a strong program of of working with young students and recruiting them throughout our entire R&D ecosystem in HP.
And the last question: I was reading your IEEE contributions. It's pretty amazing, all the stuff that you guys have contributed, especially on the area of storage and algorithms for storage.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you comply with your compliances when you discover something new or you build something new, and it belongs to the IEEE already? Because almost every single thing out there, it has a compliance with IEEE as far as research and implementation and construction. How do you manage when IEEE contributions to keeping companies secretly?
So you're talking about contribution to standards?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, obviously we have to strike a balance between protecting HP's intellectual property, because that's our primary objective is to create business opportunities for HP. But there is a really important role for us to play in terms of leading and helping set industry standards. So again, that really comes down to sort of when we start to see where does it make sense for us to play in the wider ecosystem to be sure that things are going to go be developed the way they need to. So our researchers do sit on those committees. They participate in many cases, but again, it's sort of a case-by-case basis. It really depends on what makes the most sense in that area, and it's very different. It could be very different for networking versus storage. I mean, it's just one of those things where we really have to be very, very thoughtful about how we do it.
And I also had a chance to overlook that you guys give some awards different awards. You got like the Pascal's medal and stuff like that for highest achievement inside the HP Labs. Which one would you think from last couple of years has been the breakthrough in HP Labs?
Oh boy.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, it's hard to pick one. I mean, I think probably the longest long-term impact, and I think major change is the foundational technology as we see it is non-volatile memory, is the discovery and the actual making real of the memristor, the memory resistor. I think that's something that was it's a fundamentally important technology for us. I mean, I couldn't pick just one, but I do think that that's something that really, was born in HP Labs and, is continuing to be driven by HP Labs and HP as something that's going to have a major impact. But
We have some color scientists working.
We do.
Have achieved very, very outstanding achievement. If you know about the Mars rover, HP worked on an algorithm for the picture. The pictures are great. I don't know if you've seen the picture from the Mars rover. The last pictures in 2009, 2010.
Okay.
So
I know. Well, that's why I'm saying it's hard to pick one thing.
There's a lot
I
of
think
stuff,
because
yeah.
we have so many interesting things that we have worked on, and I mean, when we put this together, we have a hard time picking too, because I think that there are things, you know, over time that have really had, you know, an impact on HP, an impact on our customers. So it's hard to pick, and especially HP Labs is really one of these multidisciplinary broad places where we work with all of our business units. We have, you know, a really multidisciplinary team, so you may have a mechanical engineer, an electronic engineer, an economist, you know, and a mathematician working together on a research project, and that's something that, you know, I think is really unique and really special. So sometimes it's hard to pinpoint, you know, because we do work across all the businesses, and we have expertise in all those areas.
You know, I think maybe the other part about it, and we kind of talked about at the very beginning, is that it's a best kept secret, and a lot of the things that you do don't actually they don't get labeled labs.
Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, some of the recent things that, you know, you might have heard a little bit about labs. So for example, if you have an HP printer and you're printing wirelessly with ePrint, that came from HP Labs, which is an interesting little sort of tidbit. And then, you know, on the same way where we're really, you know, excited about this year to be releasing our moonshot servers and things like that, that's come fundamentally from HP Labs research as well, and that really close connection that we have with the businesses to, you know, to get these things into the hands of our customers to make them real. So store once as well, and then also store all. Both technologies, like in the storage area and, you know, and metadata indexing, that are just, you know, really fundamentally changed the way, you know, we provide these services to our customers. All those things have come recently from HP Labs. So
very good.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And I'll be here, so I mean, you know, when we do the tour, feel free if you have other questions to ask me. I'm happy.
Yeah, so just one last thing, and actually I forgot to mention at the beginning when I kicked myself. The reason why we're here is because of Martina.
Oh, no. I'm the instigator.
If you have a good time, don't thank me. It's Martina that you should be thanking.
Well, anyway, I'm happy that all of you are here. We're thrilled to have you in Puerto Rico. It's always wonderful to have visitors. We hope if this is your first visit, we hope it won't be your last. And with that, I think that'll be it for me. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chris. Thank you. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Martina.
Thank you.
Thanks.